Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 1994 Toyota MR-2. Behind me is a 2.2 liter inline 4 and down below is a 5-speed manual transmission.
This video is sponsored by CarMarshal.com. If you'd like to support the channel, click the link down in the description below. CarMarshal.com advertises for over 100,000 vehicles across the US.
But let's get back to that 2.2 liter that is stationed right behind me. It's actually not that special of an engine. For you Toyota boys, I will put the engine designation down at the bottom of the screen. But the reason I'm so interested to drive this is because I've only ever driven this body style with a engine swap. It had a V6 from a Toyota Camry swapped into it. Well, this is the tried and true, this is the original normal MR2 engine that came in all of the cars besides the turbo model. And so it's not very fast. It's not a very fast car, but it's a quick car because it's small and it's nimble and the engine loves to rev. The engine revs to about 6,200 RPM. So from a little 90s naturally aspirated inline 4, it's a good time. It's a fun little time. Are you gonna win many races? Probably not. Probably not in the stock form, but you're going to have a blast. It's a little mid-engined sports car, and that's what I love about it. Now, in terms of transmission, it has a really notchy transmission. I like it a lot. You know, 90s cars like this usually have pretty notchy transmissions, and Toyota does a good job. The clutch grabs real down low, which is because this car has a brand new clutch in it. But another thing about the clutch is that it's super, super light. And that's for all MR2s. They have really, really light clutches from the factory. So much so it almost feels like an economy car, but it's not. It just has a super light clutch. And last but not least, of course, the MR2 is rear-wheel drive. And so going off that, you might be asking, well, if the engine's in the back, what's up front? Well, there is a storage area, pretty much for your spare tire. Don't expect to really fit much up front. It's really just a place for your spare tire. I guess you could call it the frunk, whatever you want to call it. It is what it is. It's not that great. So let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a bunch of analog gauges. On the far left is my coolant. Then I have my tachometer, battery voltage in the middle, and then I have my speedometer and fuel to the far right. I love the gauge setup. Plain, simple, easy to read, very analog, and it tells you exactly what you want and need to know, just plain and simple. There's no frills about it. On the steering wheel, I don't actually have any buttons, and I really like that. It's very, very uncluttered. Very 90s steering wheel. Of course, it has the integrated airbag and stuff like that. Then to my left, I really just have the switches on the doors, which is, of course, for power windows, lock and unlock, and then window locks, which I always find so funny because you know, the passenger could just reach over and unlock it if they really wanted to. Then in the center, I do get a digital clock, very 90s, but I do really like it. It's very easy to read, and I don't know, it just works well with the car. And then I do have two vents, a very 90s radio, which surprisingly hasn't been changed out. I always comment on all of my 90s car reviews of, oh, of course, the radio's been changed out for XYZ reasons, but actually, Aaron actually kept the stock radio in here, and I really like that. Then I do have climate controls, very, very bare bones basic, and a little cubby hole down at the very bottom, just for storage, stuff like that. Getting to the shifter, I think the shifter looks great. It looks very stock, but it looks exactly like how I think a shifter in an MR2 would look. There's no frills, it doesn't look out of place, it doesn't look weird, and I really, really like that. Now, the seats are bride seats. These are not the factory seats. Aaron actually put these in aftermarket. I really like them. If we're going to do a quick review on bride seats, being a bigger guy, I really, really actually like them because I do fit in them, surprisingly. But the last thing about the interior that I'll talk about is the T-tops. I do have T-tops, as you guys can tell. It's more of a 90s thing, but these two glass panels are actually removable, which is really, really handy, especially on a summer day. They work like a sunroof, but they're better than a sunroof, at least in my opinion, because you get that extra structural rigidity of the T-top, but you can take them out, and they're fun and gimmicky, and it kind of works. Now we got to talk about the looks. I think this car looks absolutely amazing. Of course, you got to love the pop-up headlights, which have been swapped out with LEDs because you got to be modern, and you know, some of the 90s and 80s bulbs and pop-up headlights are just so dang dim that it actually becomes a safety hazard. I want to do LEDs at some point in my RX-7 because driving at night is, driving blind. But I think the car looks absolutely amazing. I love the red. I love just the lines of the car. This was more of the rounded MR-2. The first generation was very angular. It looks like a door wedge. But this is more rounded. Even on the taillights, there's these little fins that come off the taillights that really reinforce this sort of aerodynamicness, I guess, if you want to say. But the color's great. Everyone says that it looks like a poor man's Ferrari. I don't know if it's because I've just hung around these cars long enough. It doesn't look super Ferrari to me. I guess the red kind of does help that argument, but I don't know. I really just think that this car looks absolutely amazing. These are BBS wheels. These are not the factory wheels. So finally, I have reviewed a factory stock 94 MR2. And two things about that. First of all, it should be noted that the 94 is actually somewhat of a rare car because there's under 1,000 of these that were imported to the US. Now, I found a lot of conflicting facts online going off of that, and the reason I say under 1,000 is I saw 900, and then on another page I saw 650, all for 94, and I understand 95 was a similar amount of cars made, but for 94, it's definitely under 1,000 for sure, probably closer to the 800, 900 range. And so this is something very, very special. Not a whole lot of people can say that they've driven or owned a 94 MR2, at least here in the States. That just didn't really happen. But getting back to it, 94, this is something so unique. An American 1994 MR2 non-turbo. This is something that not a lot of people get to experience, and I understand they're very, very similar, if not identical to the other years, blah, 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 whatever. It's still really, really cool. Now, my second closing thought on this is the fact that I've driven a V6 and I've driven now the stock 2.2 liter. The V6 was a 3.0 liter out of a Toyota Camry that had been swapped into it, and now this is obviously the stock motor. And I have to say, I would take the V6 swapped one. I think this car is an amazing time capsule. I love the fact that I was able to review this car, that I was able to drive this car. Aaron, thank you so much for allowing me to come out and film this thing. It's immaculate, it's beautiful, it's a great time capsule. However, for driving, I wish that this car had a little bit more power and a little bit more torque, and that's what the V6 gave me. In the orange car that I reviewed, it had a lot more torque to offer. And so I wish with all my heart that Toyota offered this from the factory with their V6. I know that they had them sitting around. They should have given these the V6. And normally I'm not a person that's like, oh, you need 1,000 horsepower to have fun. No, I drive a Mazda RX-7 with 150 horsepower. Believe me, I understand low-powered fun cars, and this is still a very, very fun car. But I feel like just a little bit of extra torque would have gone a very long way in this chassis. I really do love this car. It is an amazing, fantastic car. Would I rather a V6? Sure, but am I mad that I don't have one? Absolutely not. This car is awesome. It's a time capsule. It's something you just don't see anymore. On my way out here, I drove about an hour to get out to this review, and I was looking at the oncoming lanes on the highway, and I was just watching the cars go by, and nothing looks like this anymore. Nothing gives the essence of this anymore. I guess modern day Toyota 86s or BRZs, ND Miatas, sure, they're sporty, they're small. I can make that argument all day, maybe, but there's just nothing quite like the MR2 anymore. There's just not. And so I want to give a huge thank you to Aaron for letting me take out his 94 MR2. It's such a fun little car. I absolutely love it. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.
There goes a sight from my soul.